Priscilla Presley lived a life shrouded in glamour, but behind the sparkling facade lay a storm of doubt and heartbreak. Constantly haunted by suspicions of Elvis's fidelity, she wrestled with emotions that most would find unbearable. Yet instead of confronting the man she loved, she did something utterly unexpected. She apologized. What could possibly drive someone to suppress their pain and take the blame? Elvis's puzzling rules and the emotional strain they inflicted created an atmosphere of tension and secrecy in their marriage, leaving Priscilla caught in an unimaginable struggle. The shocking reason behind her choice will keep you glued until the very end. Elvis Presley was a global sensation, adored by millions, but his fame cast a long shadow over his personal life. For Priscilla, being married to the king of rock and roll was both a dream and a battle. While she had access to a world of glamour and privilege, she also faced an overwhelming struggle to adapt to the demands of being Elvis's wife. The adoration of fans, the relentless spotlight, and the secrecy surrounding his life were often isolating for her. Their relationship was far from the fairy tale it appeared to be, as the mounting pressures of his career and lifestyle slowly began to fracture their bond. Priscilla found herself trying to hold on to her identity while keeping up with a man whose life was dictated by the demands of fame. In the late 1960s, Elvis experienced a powerful career resurgence, marked by the explosive success of his comeback special and relentless touring schedule. He had gone years without performing live, but suddenly, he was on the road constantly, performing show after show to roaring crowds. For Elvis, this was a thrilling revival of his stardom, but for their marriage, it was the beginning of a deep strain. The endless cycle of touring left little room for connection or stability. Priscilla watched as the man she loved became consumed by the demands of his career, leaving her to navigate a growing distance and the painful reality that their marriage was no longer her sanctuary. What followed would not only test her resilience, but also lead to decisions and sacrifices that would leave anyone questioning what truly happened behind the scenes. As Elvis's fame grew, so did the entourage that surrounded him, a tight-knit group of loyal companions who accompanied him on every tour. But with this group came rules, and one of the most controversial was Elvis's decision to ban wives from joining the road trips. To the public, it might have seemed like a practical decision to keep the focus on work, but behind closed doors, this rule was anything but simple. Elvis claimed it was about maintaining control over his entourage, insisting that when wives were present, distractions and personal obligations got in the way of the efficiency he demanded. Yet, the bachelor-like atmosphere this created also allowed for a certain freedom, one that would later haunt the relationship he had with Priscilla. For Priscilla, this decision was more than just a logistical choice, it was a source of deep pain and growing suspicion. She wanted to support Elvis, to be by his side during the intense periods of touring, but his policy left her feeling deliberately excluded. While Elvis thrived on stage, commanding the adoration of millions, Priscilla was left at home, isolated, and grappling with feelings of being shut out of a vital part of his life. The cracks in their marriage, which had been faintly visible before, now began to deepen. The rule wasn't just about maintaining order, it became a barrier between them, a wall that quietly hinted at the larger divide forming in their relationship. This seemingly simple decision set off a chain of emotions and doubts that would ultimately test the very foundation of their marriage. As Elvis's career shifted to his iconic Las Vegas residencies, a new chapter of challenges emerged in his marriage to Priscilla. Despite the glitz and glamour of the city, Elvis's suggestion that wives, including Priscilla, only attend the opening and closing nights of his shows was a decision that sent shockwaves through their relationship. To outsiders, it might have seemed like a practical way to keep things running smoothly in a demanding environment. But for Priscilla, it carried a far heavier weight. She saw the suggestion as more than a logistical preference. It felt like a deliberate effort to keep her at arm's length. The nights between the opening excitement and final curtain calls became long stretches of uncertainty, where the silence only fed her growing fears about what might be happening in her absence. Priscilla's reaction to this new rule was a mix of hurt, frustration, and suspicion. Her mind raced with unanswered questions. Was it about the entourage, the demanding schedule, or something more personal, something Elvis didn't want her to see? Each time she complied with the rule, she found herself battling an overwhelming sense of insecurity. The glimmering front-row seats at his performances, often filled with beautiful women, only fueled her doubts. As the audience cheered and Elvis charmed the crowd, Priscilla couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that she was being deliberately kept away. Her suspicions began to overshadow the joy of their relationship, creating an emotional distance that was impossible to ignore. These feelings of exclusion and uncertainty would go on to shape the choices she made, setting the stage for a revelation that no one could have anticipated. Priscilla Presley's internal struggle was a battle that played out in the shadows of the spotlight that shone so brightly on Elvis. While the world saw the king of rock and roll as an untouchable icon, Priscilla lived in a reality far more complex and painful. Sitting in the audience during his performances, she couldn't help but let her eyes wander, scanning the sea of adoring fans for any signs of something amiss. Her gaze would linger on the women seated in the front rows, hand-picked by the venue's maître d', beautiful, glamorous figures who seemed to vie for Elvis's attention. Every flirtatious glance, every knowing smile, was a dagger to her already fragile confidence, leaving her questioning if the connection she cherished with Elvis was shared with someone else, even momentarily. These moments of doubt chipped away at Priscilla's peace of mind, creating a relentless cycle of love and distrust that she couldn't seem to escape. She adored Elvis deeply, but the seeds of suspicion planted by his behavior and the circumstances of their life together began to grow, taking root in her thoughts. Yet, she felt trapped. Speaking openly about her fears was unthinkable. Elvis's position and pride made certain topics strictly off-limits. Raising the subject of infidelity would risk shattering the delicate balance of their relationship, a balance that already felt so precarious. Instead, she bore her pain in silence, convincing herself that her suspicions were a reflection of her own insecurities rather than a response to what she feared might be true. For Priscilla, this emotional turmoil was a constant, inescapable presence. She would sit through Elvis's shows, her heart aching as she watched him effortlessly charm the audience, feeling as though she was losing a part of him to the crowd every time. The isolation of not being able to voice her doubts left her wrestling with feelings of inadequacy and guilt, even as the evidence seemed to stack against her. She struggled to reconcile the man she loved with the man the world idolized, a duality that left her caught in an agonizing limbo. And yet through it all, she remained, clinging to the hope that love could somehow prevail over the shadows of doubt that had taken hold of their marriage. But the strain of keeping these feelings hidden would eventually lead to decisions that no one could have foreseen. Priscilla Presley's response to her growing suspicions was one that few could have predicted. She apologized. Whenever her doubts crept to the surface, she would turn the blame inward, feeling guilty for questioning Elvis despite the circumstances that seemed to fuel her insecurities. Instead of voicing her concerns or seeking reassurance, she would approach him with remorse, apologizing for the very feelings his behavior had triggered. Each apology was an attempt to maintain peace, a way to quell the turbulence inside her without disrupting the delicate dynamic of their relationship. To the outside world, she was the picture of grace and composure. But behind closed doors, her apologies were a quiet plea to hold their fragile connection together. Priscilla's choice to take responsibility for her feelings stemmed from a deeply rooted fear of losing Elvis. In her mind, addressing the root of her doubts meant risking confrontation, a confrontation that could jeopardize everything they had built together. Elvis's towering presence, his pride, and the unspoken rules of their marriage made it almost impossible for her to bring these insecurities to light. She believed that by suppressing her pain and apologizing, she could keep their relationship intact. To her, the cost of silence seemed less devastating than the potential fallout of speaking up. But this pattern of self-blame and avoidance only deepened her emotional wounds, leaving her caught in a cycle of guilt and longing that she could never quite escape. The weight of these unspoken truths would eventually shape the path their marriage would take, leading to revelations that would leave the world stunned. As the emotional and psychological tension in Priscilla's marriage continued to mount, the reason behind her repeated apologies became painfully clear: her overwhelming fear of losing Elvis. Despite the hurt and suspicion that plagued her thoughts, she couldn't bear the thought of pushing him away or disrupting the delicate balance they had. In her heart, she believed that maintaining peace, even at the cost of her own emotional well-being, was the only way to salvage their relationship. Priscilla's love for Elvis was immense, but so too was her fear of confrontation and the possibility that addressing her concerns might drive him further away. Each apology was a quiet attempt to preserve the bond they shared, hoping that if she stayed silent, their love could withstand the storm brewing beneath the surface. But love, especially when intertwined with fame, is far more complex than it appears on the outside. The pressures of living under the constant glare of the public eye, combined with the private struggles of their marriage, created a volatile mix that Priscilla was ill-equipped to navigate. Fame, with all its allure, also came with a heavy price: emotional isolation, jealousy, and a constant need for validation. For Priscilla, the line between love and fear became blurred, making her choices all the more heartbreaking. As the tension built between them, the path she chose was one of silence and submission, an act of devotion that would later reveal just how deep the cracks in their relationship had grown. In the end, it was a reminder of how the complexities of love and fame can sometimes entrap even the most dedicated hearts, leaving them with no choice but to sacrifice parts of themselves in order to hold on. If you found this story as captivating and emotional as we have, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible insights into the lives of Elvis Presley and Priscilla Presley. Be sure to like this video and share it with your friends who might be just as fascinated by the complexities of their relationship. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. What do you think about Priscilla's sacrifices and her struggle to maintain peace in their marriage? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, and let's keep the conversation going.